Welcome into Show Me Sports Legacies, our third episode. So we thought we'd come back with our original panel with three of us. I don't know if we'll have 8 guests for our 8th episode, but this is the way we're doing it tonight. So we got Chris Ockenfels and Daniel Gott back with us. Welcome, guys.
Good evening, gentlemen. Great to be back.
Thanks for having me.
Good to be here with you. Now, we have been talking a lot of baseball, but there's something that starts later this week in Paris, France, the 2024 Paris Olympics. We thought we'd talk about that a little bit tonight. Talk to me about your greatest memory from the Olympics. I mean, we're all kind of captivated. We all don't even know some of these sports, but then we just throw ourselves into them for a couple of weeks and just live the life through the TV screen. Talk about your favorite Olympic memory.
First of all, I love watching the Olympics, especially the Summer Olympics. The Winter Olympics were great as well, but something about the Summer Olympics and the track and field and the swimming and the events you didn't normally get to see on TV or listen to on the radio, you got to watch every 4 years. It was readily available on television. They televised every event, and sometimes if it was in another country across the ocean, you could stay up late at night or get up early in the morning and watch events. And it's just very captivating, especially for a country that prides itself on being the best, beating other countries. And so there are a lot of great memories. The one I picked for my greatest memory was in the 2008 Summer Olympics, the swimming venue, because of the Michael Phelps factor. His quest for 8 gold medals. No one had ever won 8 in the Olympics. He was going for 8. He was in his prime, and he got the 8 gold medals, and it really came down to 2 events that he had to win that were really close. He set, I believe, a world record in the other 6 events. And these 2, he had to have a little bit of luck go his way. One was the 100-meter butterfly, which he won in a comeback. But my favorite was the 4x100 relay, where the U.S. was going up against France, who was rivals, and there was some trash talking all during the Olympics. They were the better team, had the better prelims and going in, and the USA was down. Phelps led off the relay, got out to a lead. The 2 guys who you'll never remember their names in the middle lost the lead. Jason Lezak had to come back in the end, and the iconic picture of Phelps and his teammates trying to get Lezak home. He did come back. He won barely at the end, and you see Michael Phelps and his teammates celebrate. That's, to me, what the Olympics is about. Not just the individual, but the team and rooting for your countrymen. Those guys were all rivals because they swam against each other, coming all the way through Olympic trials and probably in events in the summer and college and who knows what, but they were on the same team because they were Americans battling a really good team from France and came back and won. So that one stuck with me for a while. I love the swimming. I never watch it during the year, but if the Olympics are on, I look to see when the swimming is because I love that event.
Daniel.
I'm going to start off by breaking the rules a little bit because I'm going to talk about a couple things because obviously Michael Phelps was must-see TV for multiple Olympics.
Yes.
Those were just wonderful memories. I don't think there's any more of an exciting event in all of sports than the 100-meter dash. Every sport has a downtime of something, right? Whether it's baseball, football, there's parts where, it's not full on all the time. This is 10 seconds max of just pure sports madness. It's exciting from start to finish. It's just 9 seconds of fun. But I'm going to go back to 1992. It was the Barcelona Olympics. So I was 9, but I remember it's my first memory of the Olympics. I'm like Chris, and I'm sure like you, Jeff, and I watch as much as possible. I take as much in over these few weeks as I possibly can. I remember, do you remember the Dan and Dave Reebok commercials?
Yes.
So Dan O'Brien and Dave Johnson. So it was like the Reebok commercials and you're getting all pumped and they're like, find out in Barcelona. And do you guys remember the irony of that whole Reebok has just had this massive campaign and it gets to the U.S. trials and it was O'Brien who didn't even qualify for the decathlon. So I remember being 9 and watching these advertisements, and it got me pumped for the Olympics. Until then, I can never even remember watching the Olympics, but my favorite memory, because it got me into the NBA, and Michael Jordan was the dream team. I remember, and Chris is probably going to throw something at me here, up until that point, the NBA was something I wasn't even watching yet, but I mean, I knew I was watching something awesome. And it was like, okay, so who's the best out here? Is it this Michael Jordan guy or is this Charles Barkley guy? And of course, obviously there was Bird and Magic, but they were kind of at the end,
Yes.
of their runs. But Jordan just became myself and my brothers. He was it for us. My favorite, and I can still remember watching those basketball games and how dominant that dream team was. And we've really never seen another American basketball team that dominant since then. And 92 was a long time ago. So of all the great Olympic memories, it still stands out in my mind. First, the Dan and Dave, which got me kind of hooked. And even though O'Brien didn't even make it, but what it got me onto was the basketball and that dream team and how special that was. And people still talk about that team to this day. And it's the team that every other basketball team that shows up to the Olympics gets compared to. Every one of them. It just shows you how amazing that was all the way to, because there's a lot of talent out there, obviously. So
I go way back to as early as 1968 when I was a 9-year-old kid. I remember Bob Beamon blowing away the long jump record, and I wanted to be a long jumper. That was my thing. I watched every boxing match to watch Howard Cosell call it. I watched every rowing event because Kurt Gowdy called it. Jim McKay. All these fabulous icons of the broadcasting industry doing these games. And it was just must-see TV, and it was just on constantly. Never turn off the TV for 2 weeks. So just loved the Olympics and what they bring to us. I think in the NBC era of the Olympics, they've done such a fabulous job of bringing us the stories of the people, not just the spectacle of the event, but the background stories of the people and the path that they took to get to the Olympics.
It is a lot of fun. And Daniel, that brings back memories. I remember being a big NBA fan. I was in high school around that time, just going into college when the Dream Team, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I believe that there was a shift sometime in there where the Olympics were not allowing professional athletes, and the United States wasn't faring that well, and all of a sudden they changed the rule, and the U.S. was like, game on, everybody, and they just compiled the best team ever assembled, plus Christian Laettner.
Yes.
and minus Isaiah Thomas.
Minus Isaiah Thomas, which is another story. But they were like the Beatles traveling to these games because it was Magic and Bird and Jordan and Barkley and David Robinson and Patrick Ewing, all of these guys that everybody had been watching worldwide. And I've got one of my favorite quotes because when you said that, it came to mind, and it is a Charles Barkley quote. They come into a press conference, and they're getting ready to play Angola. And a reporter turns to Barkley and says, "Tell us what you know about Angola." And Charles Barkley says, "I don't know much about it, Angola, but Angola's in trouble." And you just knew their mentality as a team was, we're going to beat everybody by 100 and show the world that it's about time that the United States was back on top in basketball. And that's what they did. They just beat everybody. And then the players on the other teams after the game would get their autographs. Instead of shaking hands, they'd have their stuff ready. It was quite a scene.
And it's funny because it all brought it back. If you watched the documentary, The Last Dance, right?
Right.
During COVID, which everyone watched because it was, during COVID. That's where they were introduced to future Bull Tony Kukoc as well. And what they did to poor Tony, who, because there was kind of big talk around him, and they were like, yeah, we're going to shut this down right now. And just rolled the poor guy. And phenomenal basketball, just dominant.
And all the guys had one goal, the gold medal, and it didn't matter. So they were all unselfish. They all worked hard. They all played defense and offense. It was a spectacle. And every team since, is this team as good as the Dream Team? You'll never be able to quite tell because things have changed quite a bit. I think I saw a stat that said this year the U.S. will face over 60 NBA players on rosters. Back then it was like 9. So
Which was really what they were trying to accomplish with the Dream Team, make it a world game.
And they did.
And they have.
And now everybody goes, what happened? We only beat Germany by 5 points. It's because the other countries have done everything they can to try to catch up, and they've done a pretty good job of it.
Well, and also international basketball that's a different game than the NBA game. Everything from the ball to how it's called. I mean, you're not seeing the same officials, and you're not getting away with the same type of stuff. And even things like 5 fouls. These guys are having to change the way they play. It's just a different game. I mean, you can look at the NBA draft the last few years. more often than not, you're getting international guys at the top. And then your guys who are going to, Duke and wherever it may be are coming up in your fourth and fifth slots because the international game has just grown so much. And I started with the Olympics and that dream team.
The newest game into the Olympics is breaking. Okay, guys, it's breakdancing. There's 16 participants on the male side, 16 on the female side. And I swear, if we lose to an Eastern European country in breakdancing,
Can't happen.
Something is really wrong.
Right.
I want to point this out. They have throwdowns. They have a DJ. It's like beach volleyball kind of has that kind of flair to it, right? So they got a DJ, they got throwdowns. How can you take hip hop and we're going to spread that to the world, which we have for popularity, but I can't wait to see hip-hop.
I mean, how upset right now are your MC Hammers and Vanilla Ices of the world who
missed their window?
They're like, I should have, I should have an Olympic gold medal, hanging on my wall next to my one platinum album that I had. So,
and the best thing you said, Jeff, was the first thing you said, which is so American when it comes to the Olympics, is if we lose to Lithuania in breakdancing, I'm going to be so mad.
Right.
Right. We haven't even seen what it is yet, but we are not going to lose because we're America.
So I call breakdancing and things, these are your subjective sports, which the Olympics have quite a few of what I call your subjective sports.
Well,
because
think they created this because the rhythmic gymnastic
just
didn't have anything to do after that event ended.
Right, got it. Oh, right. And, they got to earn their keep.
Overtime.
Yeah, they got to earn their keep. Unless you have a Simone Biles where you're just like, listen, I don't know what I'm watching here, but I know that was incredible and a lot better than everybody else. Some of these events that are scoring, skateboarding, and all these subjective sports where there's not a clear, it's not like the 100 where you're running and it's who crosses the line first. It's not like basketball, who scores the most points. So even though I have no idea if I just watch I know it's amazing. I know what I watched this person do was awesome. But then the next person comes up and I'm like, oh man, they just killed it. And they're like, well, that was a pretty rough go for the guy from Tokyo there. And I'm like, oh wow, I guess he wasn't very good. And they throw up the scores to these subjective sports. Normally I would just turn the channel, but there's just something about this competing. And even if you don't understand it or know it, I guarantee you there's going to be a point in the next couple of weeks where every one of us are going to be watching breakdancing and talking about that guy killed it.
I used to watch water polo. I can barely swim, but I was totally into water polo.
We've all been up at 3 a.m. watching curling too. So
and fencing. What a great sport you can really get into with the fencing. I'll probably be there at 5:30 a.m. Set my alarm so I can get up and watch the England Germany because it's a big one and fencing. So yeah, that's what the Olympics is. It's
ping pong.
It's
something you do in your basement.
So many great sports that are different than the mainstream American sports like football and basketball.
There's one that they're playing. I think it's only the second time. It's 3-on-3 basketball.
Oh, yeah.
And Jimmer Fredette.
You bet.
He's going to jack
That's
up some
big
shots.
Time.
There's going to be some shots going down.
That's the kind of stuff we used to see at Eastside Park. These are, it's legendary stuff's going to happen and on the world stage.
Absolutely. Hey, let's bring it back to Missouri because we got some Missouri Olympians. We need to talk about them. There's 12 Olympians from Missouri. There's a 13th one that I'm going to talk about who's from Urbandale, Iowa, but went to the University of Missouri. So kick us off, Chris. Who you got tabs on? Who are you looking out for?
The local Olympian I picked was Jason Tatum from St. Louis, Missouri. Doing a little deep dive into Jason Tatum, I cannot believe the 5-year run he's had. First of all, to make it to the NBA is such an accomplishment because every boy and girl wants to play basketball to get to the highest level. They dream about the NBA and the WNBA. So just that. But Jason Tatum, an NBA player for the Boston Celtics, just won his first NBA championship about a month ago. He is playing on this year's Olympic team, along with a lot of NBA players. He was born in St. Louis. He's 26 years old. He went to Chaminade High School, which is a prep high school in St. Louis. Interesting fact about Chaminade is he went to Chaminade even though his dad was the basketball coach at CBC Christian Brothers. So Christian Brothers has a great reputation for basketball, but his mom wanted him to have the academic side as well as the athletic side, so convinced him to go to Chaminade. When he was in 7th grade, Bradley Beal was a senior at Chaminade, and he really loved Bradley Beal and looked up to him, so that's what got him into basketball. During high school, he was a McDonald's All-American. He was the Gatorade National Player of the Year. He won 2 Class 5 state titles in Missouri and played in the summer in the Nike Elite League AAU circuit. Everything that you could possibly accomplish in high school, Jason Tatum, as a kid from Missouri, did that in St. Louis. And then he went to Duke, which is maybe the most prestigious. It's definitely Mount Rushmore of college basketball. If you probably say North Carolina, Duke, UCLA, and Kansas. He went to Duke, but only for a year.
I will not say Kansas, but
you don't have to.
That's okay.
It's okay. He was a 3rd overall pick in the NBA draft for the Celtics there. In his NBA career, he's been on the All-NBA first team. He's been the All-Star MVP. He's played in the finals 2 times. And he's an NBA champion with this year's win over the Dallas Mavericks. This summer, right after the NBA championship, he signed a max extension with Boston, becoming the highest paid NBA player at 5 years, $314 million, surpassing his teammate Jaylen Brown for that honor. Missouri kid, every accolade you could possibly imagine in high school, Duke in college, high draft pick, all-star MVP, finals champion, highest paid player, all from St. Louis. And now he is on the 2024 Paris Olympics team. He was also on the 2020 Tokyo team that won gold. And he started his USA career in 2014 in the U17 World Championships and also played in the U19 World Championships in 2015. So Jason Tatum may not get recognized right now with LeBron James, Steph Curry on the team, but right up there with the accolades with any of those guys.
Okay, who you got?
Yeah, I've got little less known, Chris Nilsson. He is a graduate of Park Hill High School, and his expertise is pole vault. He is a pole vaulter. He actually went to University of South Dakota. Kind of 2 for 2 here, unfortunately, on people we picked who spurn the University of Missouri, or maybe the University of Missouri did not. Maybe they didn't go after Nilsson.
I'm going to make up for that with mine.
I know that they went after Tatum, just couldn't reel him in. Chris was the silver medalist, actually, in the Tokyo pole vault, which was a bit of an upset for that. And he lost out to a guy who was actually from and lives in New Orleans and trains there, but I believe competed for Sweden. His personal best in the pole vault is 19 feet, 8 inches, which is roughly 15 and a half feet over my PR in the pole vault. Back in 7th grade when Coach Ferguson told me, yeah, you can try it, but I have a feeling it's not for you. He was right. Pretty impressive. He was also a high jumper, hasn't had the Olympic type success there. So some of his best finishes, he again, silver in Tokyo in 2020, in the World Championship in 2022. He also received the silver medal there in the pole vault. In 2023, won the bronze in Budapest. He also competes indoor and holds a lot of records there. He won bronze in 2022 in the World Indoor Championship and was a gold medalist in the 2019 Pan American Games in the pole vault. When he was in high school, at the Missouri Class 5 sectional, he actually set the national high school record in the pole vault with 18 feet 5 inches as a high schooler. That's impressive. I know we're all kind of track fans too and have kind of some special track places in our heart. I have taken over for Chris as the finish line guy of all of our track meets at Trenton, and we did it together for quite a few years. Track is such an impressive sport all around with all the events, and to see somebody who is really good at the pole vault, it's just really impressive, which is why I actually picked Chris Nilsson for this, because it's just something I usually kind of stand back in awe of, the type of skill it takes to get yourself up over that bar. I saw an interview on him they did on one of the Kansas City stations. I think he's pretty confident. He said competing in 2021 was just such a weird feeling during COVID. Couldn't have anybody go with him. He was a first-time Olympian and said he was having trouble eating and sleeping. He lost 10 pounds before the event. He was sleeping like 3 and 4 hours a night, but still managed to come home with a silver medal. Local guy, pretty impressive. to even qualify and go to the Olympics in a sport where really United States has some of the top pole vaulters in the world. For him to go and get that silver medal was impressive, and hopefully he is able to put on a good show in Paris.
Absolutely. Carissa Schweitzer is from Urbandale, Iowa.
MIZ.
Went to Missouri, became the first woman to win a national title. And I'm telling you, as somebody who has a University of Missouri degree, well, not hanging on the wall, but leaning up against the wall at this point, national champions don't grow on trees at Missouri, and that's impressive. She did that one time, and then she came back and did it 5 more times. She's a 6-time national champion in cross country, 5,000 meter, 10,000 meter. She's had a fabulous career. Went to the Bowerman Track Club, Nike, in Oregon to train with the best. Had some injuries the last couple of years, but managed to qualify in the 5,000 and the 10,000 meter with the 3rd place finish in each. Now, I've run some 5Ks, and I've run them more along the lines of her 10K times. I just want to be clear. I mean, she's running under 15 minutes in the 5K. It's impressive. She's a fabulous example, fabulous athlete with some Iowa and Missouri connections. I'm claiming her as a Missourian for this purpose because she's done so fantastically. Now I'm going to throw in a couple bonuses here. Rachel Tozier, who's in the shooting events, is originally from Pattonsburg, Missouri. She's a member of the U.S. Army and a graduate of the University of Central Missouri. She graduated in 2014. So we wish her well, and if you get the opportunity to follow those results, check that out. And just miss the team, because, I mean, there's some fabulous athletes that don't get to go to Paris. Amazing athletes that devote their lives. And Janae Casnavoid is a professional women's hammer thrower, world championship bronze medalist, had been fighting some injuries, came back, but wasn't able to place in the top 3 and go to Paris. She was born in my hometown of Lawson, Missouri, and she was a Lawson Cardinal who graduated in the year 2013, close to here. There's some world-class athletes around us, and you've got to admire the dedication, the effort, the fact that they start here, but then they have to go somewhere to get the kind of training and the results that are world-class. More power to them, and I wish them all the best. Okay, guys, the Olympics are just too big to be talked about for a handful of minutes, so we're going to keep rolling with this. And right now, you got to give me your Mount Rushmore of Olympic athletes. Chris, we're going to start with you. Who's on your Mount Rushmore?
Oh, great question, Jeff. I'm going to go with 4 Americans. I'm going to start off with Michael Phelps, swimming. Talked about him earlier. All the accolades, all the medals, showed up at the prime time, was the most unstoppable swimming force for about 12 years. Number 2, going to go Jesse Owens, track athlete, 1936 Olympics in Berlin. Not only for athletic reasons, but for cultural reasons. Jesse Owens, household name in American culture. My 3rd spot is going to go to Mary Lou Retton. Grew up the first gymnast I remember rooting for. Mary Lou Retton, pommel horse, the floor routine, and all the things that go with watching her perform.
She was on a Wheaties box.
And she got on the Wheaties box. Great call there. National hero, Mary Lou Retton. And my 4th, kind of a wild card, but I'm going Karch Kiraly because I loved watching Olympic volleyball. He was a gold medalist, but he was an Olympic gold medalist in indoor volleyball and later on in the beach volleyball when they added it, and then became a successful coach. So Karch Kiraly, Mary Lou Retton, Jesse Owens, Michael Phelps.
Karch Kiraly is like the epitome of a California athlete.
Right
I mean,
from...
he's like the iconic.
Off the surfboard, right onto the volleyball court.
Absolutely. Okay, Daniel, what do you got?
Okay, so I'll start off with one that makes sense because I talked about my experience and my biggest memory from the Olympics being 92 Barcelona with a guy who I think could be on the Mount Rushmore of multiple topics. I mean, he's on the Mount Rushmore of basketball. I think he could be on the Mount Rushmore of sports figures altogether. So therefore, he fits right into the Mount Rushmore of the Olympics for me. And that's the greatest competitor of all time and a 2-time Olympic medalist, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. First one. Second one, and I'm going to go in order by medal. So he had 2. The next person, and I believe we're on our way to seeing this medal count climb. For me and anybody else who's been watching the last Olympic runs, Simone Biles. I mean, what she does basically defies all logic and science and kinesiology and just anything else you want to put in there because it's just amazing what she does. So
once She led the Trenton Marching Band at the Houston
Well, there you go. I mean, that's got to be on her.
HEB parade.
I mean, I guarantee you in her trophy room, that's there somewhere.
Yeah. I don't think she did any flips out of the
And if it's not, it really should be. So right now her medal count is 7. And I believe if you watch, she's going to be doing 2 moves, and one of them's called like the Biles 1 and one's the Biles 2. So when you have, when you're performing your moves that are named for you, you've done something pretty special there. My next Mount Rushmore candidate, now don't get mad at me for this, but it's not an American, but it's somebody that I think took the Olympics by storm for multiple Olympics and really was the biggest show to watch, and that was Usain Bolt. Again, I go back to, there's just nothing more exciting than the 100. That guy was so dominant against the other dominant people in his sport. Just unbelievable. I swear his world record should be more because he seems to pull up at the end of every race. What could it have been if the guy would actually finish all the way through?
There's an iconic picture of him slowing down and looking over his shoulder with a grin to see if anybody's close as he's winning an Olympic medal.
An Olympic gold medal.
Unreal that he is that much better than everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great choice.
And my final one is another person kind of in that dominant ilk of your Jordans and Bolt and Phelps, and that's Katie Ledecky. You kind of have to be a real avid fan because she's in the races that take 15 minutes. But what's impressive in that 15 minutes is she's like swimming the English Channel, essentially. So, I mean, she has 10 total medals, 7 gold, 3 silver. And if you look at all the world records, and I honestly can't remember what the distance is, that's her main race, one of the medleys, she has, of the top 20 times, 18 of them are hers. I mean, she just continues to beat herself. So I think Katie Ledecky's got to be on anyone's Olympic Mount Rushmore as well.
Outstanding. I'd go to both of these Mount Rushmores. I'm going to go a little more old school, but not way back in the time machine. Carl Lewis, 9-time Olympic gold medalist. He is a 10-time world champion, multiple events, sprinting events, and the long jump. I'm still going to tell you that the greatest competition I ever saw in a world championship track and field event was his battle against Mike Powell in the long jump, when Mike Powell broke the world record and Carl Lewis put up 4 of the next top 6 jumps in the world ever in that event and finished second. I mean, it was just an amazing battle between 2 people at the peak of their athletic powers. So I'm going with Carl Lewis. Mark Spitz, who was Michael Phelps before Michael Phelps in the Mexico City Olympics in '68. He was on a lot of walls with the posters. He was the first kind of icon coming out of the Olympics at that time. I'm going to go with Edwin Moses, another person from the Carl Lewis era in the 80s. Edwin Moses in the 400-meter hurdles looked like he was running the race by himself most of the time. He just dominated that for a decade. I'm going to go real old school here on the last one, since my daughter was a discus thrower. Al Order, 4-time Olympic discus champion. Al Order was just a stud.
How impressive is it to be a 4-time Olympic champion? It's impressive to be a 4-time champion in anything. But what's most impressive about somebody who's a 4-time Olympic champion, that is a span of you being at the top of your sport for 16 years. That's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It's just unheard of. And particularly when you look at the way that athletes today have the best training, the best food, all this kind of stuff. These guys were probably working 3 jobs.
Well, yeah.
To make money. They weren't able to make money as pros for the most part in these early years. Just stunning that they had the dedication and they were able to do that over such a long period of time.
Can we invite our listeners to list their Mount Rushmores?
I would love to do that.
I think we should do that on social media, wherever you post this. I'm just interested to hear what other people, because I'm sure they're going to come up with names that we did not. And we came up with 12, my math right on that? Yeah, 12 awesome Olympians. And I just would love to hear others.
Another great episode, great conversation. I'm pumped up for the Olympics. And it might be a week or 2 before you hear from us again. We'll be glued to our TV sets, watching the game. We'll root for those Missouri Olympians and see if we can bring home some medals back to the state of Missouri. Thanks again for being with us, talking some sports.
USA. USA. We'll hear that chant a few times in the next couple of weeks.
A few times. We will, and we'll love it. The Olympics inspire us. It was a good talk with Daniel and Chris. Appreciate their contributions and their passion. And just a small post-show note, Dan O'Brien, he had a redemption story. I'm sure Reebok would have liked that to have happened in 1992, but kudos to Dan O'Brien, who came back in 93, 95 to win the World Championship, then became a gold medalist for the United States of America in 1996. As we get our social media platforms up and running, I'm going to point you to my X account, formerly known as Twitter. That's at JL Crowley. JLCROWLEY. We put out the question of who are your Mount Rushmore Olympians. Keep downloading those podcasts on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, anywhere you get your podcasts. Just look us up under Show Me Sports Legacies. Follow, like, or subscribe. We're not asking you for money. Just enjoy.